Hey, welcome back to a new video. Today we're testing out the brand new Urban Decay Face Bond Foundation that has a lot of claims to it, some of them being it's waterproof, you can't feel it on your face, it's transfer resistant, and it sets itself. It's gonna be pretty hard to beat my current favorite foundation, which is the About Face foundation, but we're gonna put it fully to the test, see if these claims are true, all the good stuff that you need to know. We're gonna talk about it. If you enjoy my content and find it helpful, you can give me a super thanks, which is that button on the bottom of the screen with a heart on it, which means it will highlight your comment. I'll make sure to respond to your comment as soon as possible. Also give you a shout out in my next video. If you've never heard of the super thanks, you can leave me a tip to help support my content and help fund buying products for my videos. Because I am a smaller creator, I really don't get on a lot of PR lists. I do purchase most of these things myself, including this new foundation, but another great free way to support me is also just to make sure you are subscribed. All right, let's get started into the details of this new foundation from Urban Decay. First things first, it's called the Face Bond Waterproof Foundation, up to 24-hour wear, 3% niacinamide, and can't feel coverage. It also claims that it is self-setting up to 24 hours. Can't feel coverage, lightweight, non-comedogenic. This bad boy is claiming a lot of things, and we're gonna put all of those claims to the test, because when you're putting claims on a foundation, expect me to actually test them, because I don't like false advertising. So this is $40 on Sephora, and I got the shade 2 Fair Neutral, and it's described as a lightweight waterproof foundation with the skincare benefits of a serum and self-setting powder for blurring effect in a medium coverage matte finish. So sometimes foundations will claim that they are water resistant, which is a different thing from claiming to be waterproof. Water resistant would just mean that it is resistant to water. It's going to maybe wear a little bit better than a foundation that doesn't claim to be water resistant, but this claims to be waterproof, which should mean that we can drench our face in water and this shouldn't come off, and it also says that it's transfer resistant. So a lot of big stuff to test. So the packaging is quite small and thin, which I think would make it nice and portable. It does not feel very luxury or like a $40 foundation. It feels kind of cheap because it is just in a plastic bottle. You do get 1 ounce of product, and then when you take the cap off, it says that it does have this little spout. Patent pending, no mess, no waste dropper. So I like that at least. First, let's do a swatch. I will swatch it next to the About Face F1 Fair Neutral shade. So there is the About Face F1 Neutral, and then let's do a little bit of this one, which is called their 2 Fair Neutral. Both of these neutral shades. So there we have the comparison. This one is a little bit lighter than the About Face one. And the About Face one almost has, like, you can tell there's a little bit more yellow in the Urban Decay shade. Only slightly though. They're actually very similar shades, which is exciting because I do really like the match of the About Face one on me. There's also instructions on how to use this, so I want to follow them to make sure that we're testing the claims correctly. So for suggested prep, it says make sure skin's properly moisturized and give any skincare products enough time to absorb. Check, we did that. For a natural skin-like finish, use a sponge, put 1 drop onto skin and bounce outward with a sponge for a blended finish. To build more coverage, use a brush, also put 1 drop on the brush. For max coverage, use your fingers, put small drops directly on the face and pat into skin for maximum coverage. Interesting. I think we're going to start with a sponge because that's usually my favorite method of application. I do also want to briefly touch on the ingredients in this foundation. Your first ingredient is water, and then you have dimethicone, and then you have alcohol. For me, my skin is quite sensitive to alcohol. Usually when it's in one of the top main ingredients of a product, a lot of it tends to flash off by the time you apply it to your skin. But if you are sensitive to it like I am, you can still get the residual amount on your skin and it can make your skin react, which I have been experiencing with this formula, but I still wanted to try it and show you and test all the claims. Just gonna hope my skin stays relatively okay. It said to put 1 drop onto a sponge. I usually would apply it on my face and then blend it with the sponge, but I want to follow their suggestion. I'm not exactly sure what 1 drop would be. Can we agree that's 1 drop? Let me know. But let's go ahead and just start applying this and see what we're working with. This was like the lighter coverage option as well, so we will keep that in mind. I don't believe there's any fragrance in this formula, but when I am applying it, I do smell that sort of alcohol-y scent. So here is just a very light layer. That was 1 drop. I would definitely say that this is light coverage. I'm curious to try my fingers to get the max coverage option. So for that option, it suggested to dot it onto your face first and then blend it in with your fingers. I will say that it's blending really nicely. Like I'm not really having any issues with it grabbing to anything. When I did first try this though, I will say I think it was my skincare. It ended up pilling a ton. So I think it just might be one of those, like they mentioned, like use your skincare, make sure it's really set in, especially if you're gonna be like rubbing it as an application method. Honestly, I don't think between the finger side and the sponge side that the application like coverage was really that much different. So I will probably just stick with the sponge. For the shade, I'm seeing a lot of the olive tones in my neck, so I think it's just slightly too cool for me. Take a couple more dots and then blend it in. Oh, so the problem I did have with my skincare, I'm remembering now, is because I was wearing a sunscreen when I first tried this foundation, which it is important that it should work over a sunscreen. When I have to test a couple more, I don't have any on today, I just have skincare. I'm just going back in and dotting more product just to see if we can build it up, since I'm looking for more of like a medium coverage. So here's what it's looking like. I'm not super impressed. Like it's kind of making my skin look dull almost. We'll see if my skin starts to react, because usually the reaction I have with alcohol in skincare or makeup is that I'll just start to get really flushed in my face, which I think might already be happening, getting a little warm. So yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious to test the rest of these claims though. I would say already off the bat, like if you have any dry skin at all, you're probably gonna hate this. It just doesn't give you a lot of moisture, so you're gonna have to do a lot of prep for it. So if you don't really have issues with like your foundation staying, then I don't know. Verdict is still out though. Maybe it will warm up and look very pretty. It doesn't feel drying or anything. It just definitely has a matte finish. Go ahead and add a little bit of concealer. I'm gonna use my Haus concealer, of course. This has actually been lasting me a really long time and I use it every day. I'm just like waiting for it to run out. Like, not that I want it to, but I'm just like, when is it gonna run out? I can't tell. Also gonna blend this in with my sponge. This also says that you don't need to set it. It's self-setting, so we're not gonna use powder, which is not something I usually do. I will go ahead and set my under eyes with the Dermablend loose powder, but the rest of my face, I'm just gonna leave it. We're gonna see how powders. Actually, should I use like powder, bronzer, and blush? So it's this self-setting, but I still want to use like powder, bronzers, and blushes. So we'll just keep that in mind when I'm assessing the situation after. Grabbing my RMS Beauty bronzer. This is the Beachwalk Betty shade. Also just used a little bit of the French Rosé blush, also from RMS. So it is 2 o'clock exactly now. So this will be sort of the first check-in. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the rest of my makeup, and then we're gonna test the waterproof ability of this, which I'm really interested in. I'm honestly not really loving what it's doing to my skin. Like, it doesn't look bad by any means. I just feel like it doesn't look as pretty as like my favorite foundation. But usually sometimes with these, they do end up looking better throughout the day, surprisingly. So we will see. Let me finish up my makeup and I'll be back. Here's what it's looking like with the rest of my makeup. It looks fine, like I mentioned before, like nothing crazy going on. There is some creasing around my nose and my smile lines. Let me show you. It's not that bad in my smile lines, but for some reason just like this side of my nose, I don't know, that hasn't really ever happened to me. Maybe I just need to blend out a little bit before it set itself. But in terms of the self-setting, I don't know, it's like a little bit like, it doesn't feel like it's totally completely like powder dry, but it also doesn't feel super greasy or anything. So I'll have to see how that plays out throughout the day. Like, is it gonna keep me as matte as if I were to set it with powder? Right, next onto the testing, we will see how it looks in natural light, and then we're gonna go ahead and test the waterproof claim of this as well. So let's get to it. All right, we're back, and now that we're in natural light, hopefully you can see sort of what I'm talking about with the creasing next to my nose. It really is quite settled in my smile lines. And yeah, it's just not looking the absolute hottest, I would say, on texture, I guess. It almost looks like I over powdered a foundation, even though I didn't use any powder because it's self-setting, so I don't really know what to think about that. For the waterproof test, I'm literally just gonna take this spray bottle of water and drench my face in it, and then we will use this cloth and see if any foundation visibly comes off. Also keep in mind that obviously, you know, I have other makeup on, so I'm just gonna try the areas that were just the foundation, so not excited about this, but let's get misting. Oh my god. I want to get my face really wet, like if it was literally submerged in water, so I'm just gonna go for it. Okay, my face is drenched in water now, like literally dripping with it. I don't have a white cloth, but I do have this one. I feel like it's light enough that if the foundation comes off, we should see it. So let's just start with my chin. Okay, I don't really see anything yet. A little bit right there, but that was my lipstick. Yeah, I guess like none of it is really transferring off of my face, which is interesting, but it does claim to be waterproof, so I'm glad that it at least did that. My mascara smudged just so much. I should have wore a waterproof mascara, but I just dabbed the rest off. And yeah, surprisingly, like it did not transfer on the cloth at all. And it actually looks the same too. I was wondering if it would like change the look of the foundation. I feel like if you were to rub this, you probably are gonna get the foundation to come off because you're adding so much friction. But if you were to just pat dry your face, I don't see that the foundation like came off any patchiness, and it did seem to like almost repel the water. So I am happy to report that at least the waterproof action of this foundation is true, because that was one of the big main claims. And I think for summer, if you're like by the pool or whatever, you're getting splashed and you do want something that is waterproof, this could be a good option. Even though it's not like looking the absolute prettiest on my skin, for the utility purposes, it could be a good one. We will still have to see. Let me know in the comments below before we go to the next check-in what you're thinking about this foundation, if you think it's gonna wear well or not, what you think about like the waterproof claims, and just the overall vibe of this foundation, because I feel like it is a very unique and interesting launch. Filming on my phone now, I thought I would do one more test for this, which would be a sweat test. I did just work out in it, and I am a self-proclaimed face sweater, but also like obviously I sweat a lot in my face, literally dripping down my forehead. So I wanted to blot this off and see if the foundation comes off, because I feel like if it's waterproof, like it should be sweat proof as well. So let's test it. This time I'm gonna use some white tissue so we can really see if anything comes off. Okay, that was my forehead. I don't really see, maybe like a little bit of color. That could be the bronzer. Test the chin. Okay. Nothing really on the chin either. Yeah, I mean, honestly don't see anything coming off. Pretty impressive. I've really been putting this foundation through the ringer. It looks okay. I feel like it's starting to get like a little bit cakey just with everything that I've put it through so far. Like just around my nose, and I'm noticing like in my pores, I forget which side, let me check. Okay, sort of on this side of my face, it's slightly like settling into the pores, this is the side I use with my fingers. I feel like it doesn't apply as well with fingers as it does a sponge. I just feel like it was like slightly smoother. So yeah, just like I said in the beginning, it's not the most beautiful looking foundation, but so far it still has held up, and I don't feel like it's getting like super broken down, even though it definitely is starting to. But I hope you found it helpful. See you in the outro. Bye. Back for our final check-in of the Face Bond foundation. It is now 11:15. I will have the close-up footage probably going right about now. For me, testing the waterproof ability of this and also the sweat proofness of this, and it's still looking relatively decent on my face, I will say is quite impressive. I don't feel like anything has changed since I last looked at it. I'm getting pretty oily, but I do feel like it's relatively oil controlling for being a self-setting foundation that we didn't put powder on, so that's interesting. There's definitely like cakiness around my chin and my nose. It's just like not quite as perfecting as I would like it to be, and I feel like I had to put in a lot of work for it. To speak on the other claims, I do feel like it's relatively self-setting, like without powder it didn't get super oily, and it does feel like it set down, but because of that it does have quite a flat matte finish, which isn't my favorite thing in the world. Okay, so it does say water, sweat, and humidity proof. We did test 2 of those. Smudge and transfer resistant, check. No powder needed, didn't really use much. The niacinamide, I'm not sure that would be one of those things like long term you might see an improvement in your skin. And then the can't feel coverage, that's lightweight, medium buildable. I would say it's super lightweight, it doesn't really feel like foundation. If you had dry skin though, it might feel like a little bit drying. And it is medium coverage. I would say it's light buildable coverage. It definitely gives you light coverage at first. Even with like the fuller coverage methods, I don't feel like I was getting, like I said, enough perfecting that I would have preferred. So overall, I think this is nice, but for $40, unless you're really drawn to the fact that it's waterproof and sweat proof and transfer resistant, and those are things that you really need in your makeup routine, and maybe you're on the more normal to oily side, you might want to try this one out and you might like it. But I would say if you're normal to drier skin, maybe you have more textured skin like me, it just isn't looking the best. Like, it didn't perfect me as much as I wanted. I'm still probably going to reach for my About Face foundation over this one. I'd rather have something wear a little bit less great and just look nicer and make me feel a little bit more put together. But I do also want to reiterate, for everything that we put it through, it looks pretty decent. If that's something you're going for, you may want to try this one out. But I hope you found this enjoyable and helpful. Don't forget to give it a like if you did, and there's gonna be another video here so we can keep hanging out and you can check out another one of these videos that YouTube thinks you're gonna like. Let's see if you do, but I'll see you over there. Bye.